My name is Civil Miller-Watkins, and I'm running for the Tennessee State Senate, District 26. And when I decided to run, let me tell you why I decided to run. Because I found out that our current senator wasn't going to run. And I knew that if no one stepped up, that we would get the same old thing we've been getting for these last 12 years with her being in office. So I decided that we needed to have a choice in District 26. So when I pulled my ballot and I turned it in, it was in April. Y'all know what happened in April? They shut the state all the way down. We couldn't go nowhere. We couldn't, you remember, we were all wearing gloves going to the store. Y'all remember what was happening in April? So I decided to start this race. And I realized that all of the training and all the books and all the campaigning I had done in the past wasn't going to work this time. That I had to do something different. So what was that different going to be? Well, it was going to be virtual. Let me ask y'all, how many of y'all go to a lot of Zoom meetings? Yeah. How many of y'all are on Facebook and that's how you like keep up with some of the news? Okay. How many on Instagram? Okay. Anybody Snapchat? Oh, we got some Snapchatters over there. All right. So what happened was most of the campaigns had to move online. So if you didn't already know a whole bunch of people, and let me just say this, District 26 is made up of 8 counties. All of those counties I had to touch during a pandemic. So when I began to think about reaching out, the first thing I did is I called a bunch of young people together. And I asked them, I said, what do y'all think about politics? And they said, well, it doesn't touch me. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just going to vote whatever way my mama told me to vote. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I have since called those same young people about 2 weeks ago. And it was before Breonna Taylor. And they had become concerned because they began to hear what the national scene was saying. But I had to remind them that you have to begin to look at your state politics as well. During that time, there was this law passed that makes it a felony to protest if you camp out and if you are charged with rioting. And so when the young people called me, 2 of them called me a couple of days ago trying to figure out how they could protest because people are hurting. And I believe we've been hurting since the pandemic because I don't know about y'all, but I know 3 people that were close to me that have died. There are 7 people that are close to me that have recovered and yet still suffer the consequences of COVID-19. But when I'm around people who believe that the virus is a hoax and not as serious as it is, what I realize is it hasn't touched them. And when I realized that it hadn't touched them, I realized that we find that to be true with our elected officials. They don't know how to respond to something if it hasn't touched them. So when the educational report came out just the other day, and it was stated that our children were losing ground and not meeting the measure, what I figured out was they were able to say that because they don't have children in the school. They don't know how hard the teachers are working to make sure that our children are doing better. They don't know how hard it is that our parents are there trying to educate our children, being learning partners virtually. They don't know the challenge that parents had making the decision of whether or not to send their kids to school or to keep them at home. When you don't understand that, how can you legislate? Then I thought about how our legislators decided not to extend Medicaid to the black mothers who disproportionately die after childbirth. And I realized they haven't experienced that. So they don't know how to legislate because they don't talk to people. How many of you have met your legislator and actually been able to talk to them? Your state legislator. And that's right, 3 of us. So when we think about who is passing laws, who's fighting for us, I believe we need to begin to focus on, have you experienced what I've experienced? And then if you haven't, are you talking to me? That's what happened with the Tennessee Educational Department. They didn't talk to the teachers. They didn't get the report from the districts. They just made assumptions. Then as I was talking to these are some young kids, and they're in college, and they are in virtual, but they're on campus. Y'all know children are doing that now, right? They're virtual, but they're on campus. And what they said was, Mama, and I'm talking about two of them, my kids. That's why I say I talk to them. They said, Mama, college is just so boring. I was like, what you mean? We can't go nowhere. We can't do nothing. I said, boy, you're in college during a pandemic. So when we think about our children, who's up there standing and fighting for them? If you haven't experienced life hungry, if you don't know what it means to not have a car, if you can't understand how it feels not to have insurance but need to go to the doctor, if you can't feel what a mother feels when her children look up at her and she can't buy them shoes and new clothes and all of that, then do you have enough empathy to talk to the people that you need to talk to? So the one thing that I have concluded, and during this time after the primary, was everybody talks about better schools. Every candidate talks about, we're going to have better schools. Have y'all heard that? But how are they going to get it done? What are they saying? How have they voted? How is the party that they are a part of, how have those individuals voted? Because you can see a track record. Everybody talks about expanding Medicaid, but if they don't have a reason or a cause to expand it, they won't vote for that. I have a reason and a cause, because I know what it's like to be on Medicaid. I know what it's like to be on TennCare. I know what it's like to have to get some food stamps. I know what it's like to live trying to figure out how you're going to keep your lights on. So when they talk about expanding Medicaid and bringing jobs, do they understand that we don't want any more $7 jobs? We want some living wage jobs. That means they need to go ahead and give us the money from the state so that we can get the mega site going. Y'all, everybody heard about the mega site? It's 4,000 acres over in Haywood County, but about 450 of it is in Fayette. And I went to a meeting the other day, and the one thing I saw was Fayette County wasn't represented in that meeting. And I'm like, wait, why aren't we at this table? It's 400 acres, mind you, out of 4,000, but why aren't we at the table? So what I found out was the money is there for the mega site. The governor won't release it. Why? Because there aren't enough people pressuring him to make West Tennessee a priority. Forever, since I am 54 years old, and West Tennessee has never been a priority with a supermajority Republican Party being in power. West Tennessee, we saw all of our growth under a Democratic governor. Everything started happening. We saw growth around here with Lieutenant Wilder. So I know this is a very unconventional speech, but it's just time for us to start electing people that don't just talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And they'll be amongst the people. And they'll be able to understand what's going on with everyday people. Not the corporations. Not just one particular segment of our community, but everybody. I think it's time we have somebody who's going to represent everybody. And I'll close with this. So when I saw well, first of all, there is a portion of our community that is hurting. And you don't know what to do with it. You don't know, you kind of feel numb. Anybody else kind of feel like, what are we going to do? What's going to happen next? Can we get some relief? Well, I am believing that we'll find our relief in this election. We've got to go from the top of the ballot to the bottom of the ballot voting for Democrats. And why am I saying Democrat? Being a Democrat is just the door to voting. You need to know why you're voting Democrat. Why are you going to vote for people, certain people to be in office? Will they be able to do everything? No. But will they address it? Will they realize that you're there? Will they realize your civil rights, your human rights, your environmental rights, your educational rights? It's all about rights. It's all about justice. So when we think about that, that's why we want to vote Democrat. You know, I told my son, you can't just say because my mama said so. You got to have, you got to put a fire in your belly now. So what we need this year is for Democrats to get a fire in their belly. I don't care how many Joe Biden signs they burn. They burning Joe Biden signs in Lexington, Tennessee. They're stealing Joe Biden and Harris signs in other counties in District 26. And if you wonder why I haven't had any of my signs along the byways and the highways, that's because I put 10 up one night and they were gone in about 3 days. And I have people who are donating money for me to buy these signs. So I would rather you have them in your yard. So if somebody's around here, I haven't seen one, because as soon as I put one out, they disappear. But they can be in y'all's yards. And you can take a picture of that and post that on social media. So we've got to be smart. We've got to be steadfast. We've got to be diligent. And then Democrats, we got to be vocal. We too quiet. It's like being a Democrat is a secret. So with all of that, going to Nashville, I remember going to Nashville means a lot because my mom back in the 60s was looking for black folk to run for office. And she couldn't find them because they were scared they would lose their jobs. And she was scared, they were scared that they would be harassed. And when I thought about that, I thought about Tent City. And I didn't know much about Tent City till I came to Fayette County. And then my friend, Captain Wainwright back there, brought it back to Fayette County so that our children would know that history. And I don't want that to be a repeat. I don't want black folk to feel disenfranchised with voting. And finally, and I keep saying finally, y'all, Tennessee is not a red state. Did y'all know that? It's really not. It's a voter suppressed state. Only a quarter of Tennesseans who are eligible to vote. So it can't be a red state unless 50 plus 1% vote, right? So it's not a red state. So we've got to be encouraged. We've got to get everybody we know out to vote, and we need to vote early. If you don't have to do an absentee ballot where you get it and mail it in, then don't do that. But do show up October the 14th through the 29th and get your vote on. And then let everybody else know that they need to vote too. And we have wonderful school board positions that are up. United States Senator, United States Congressman, or Congresswoman, sorry, as well as Tennessee State Senate. So make sure you go all the way down the ballot.